Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We are live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, but we've got to bring in our Facebook groups because everybody's sitting around on Facebook or something on Thanksgiving Day. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We're going to let this thing breathe, air out. I know everybody could stand to take a deep breath after probably eating a little too much today. I know I did. But welcome in, everybody. This is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I am your guest host tonight, Scott Kennedy. You can find me on Twitter or TikTok now at Scout Kennedy. Over on this side is Keith Kelberman. That's what it looks like. Wait,
right, I'm out.
Change your name. Is it at Kelberman? What does that say? Zack Kelberman, who can be found at Kelberman NFL on Twitter. Zack, how has your day gone on this holiday? Another one. I figured it out. I'm like, this is actually my 50th Thanksgiving. I'm not quite 50 yet, but you know, you do one when you're 0 years old. This is my 50th. This is my 50th Thanksgiving Day.
It's a milestone, man. I mean, my day was pretty good. I can't complain when there's football on, Scott, and we finally had decent matchups on Thanksgiving for once, and the games did not disappoint. I was pulling for Detroit to get that upset. They couldn't close it out. Looks like Dallas was pretty dominating over the Giants, and now we're waiting for the Pats to hopefully lose to the Vikings. But maybe the tryptophan is hitting me just a little bit. I'm a little more mellow than I usually am, but that might be a good thing tonight. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, by the way.
I hit the sugar rush and the caffeine afterwards, so I'm going pretty good. It was nice also having a little bit of World Cup. That's different this time of year, as they have it in Qatar, as they pronounce it when you're over there, Qatar, because FIFA is for sale and the highest bidders won. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, you've heard me say before, Zach, there's alpha franchises, there's beta franchises, then there's the Detroit Lions, Cleveland Browns, Atlanta Falcons, et cetera, and it just always happens. I mean, Detroit is playing well. They played really well, and they still find a way to lose the game. That's just how this game works. You can't tell me there's not higher powers out there that are keeping an eye, pulling the strings, and master of puppets out there.
Listen, as Broncos country, we have no room to talk, and it's pretty sad watching Detroit score 25 points, and I find myself being envious of those same Detroit Lions. Like, what universe are we living in? I was actually pretty impressed. I'm not the biggest fan of his, but Jared Goff had a good game today. They should have won based on the strength of the offense. It's the defense that blew it in crunch time, but they took arguably the best team in the NFL right down to the wire. So I do like what Dan Campbell's doing in Detroit. You can tell the culture is changing.
Yeah, Jared Goff has been playing well. I didn't watch all of it. I watched the first half, and then I watched some of Brazil match, and then I came back and watched the last few minutes of the game, which ended up seeing 3 scores of the Detroit Lions and Buffalo Bills. But I didn't see if Goff had an interception. He's got like 9-0 going into today. He was playing really well. But we want to say hello to some folks too in the stream today. Dylan in the house says, "Sup, Broncos country." Make sure you hit that like button on the way in. If you're on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, hit the share button. That's a big help. It's something you can do for all of us. So thank you for the reminder, Dylan. And James Moss was coming in early. Since we were having people with little or no experience, I would like to volunteer my services as a play caller. No lie. And I've heard something like this similarly. Y'all have heard me mention the 2003 Auburn Tigers. They basically changed how I watch football. They were 3rd in the country. Cadillac Williams, Jason Campbell, Ronnie Brown, Marcus McNeil, all Timmy Duckworth, I think, was on that team. These guys are first-round picks after 2004. So 2003, they're juniors, and Jason Campbell was a 4th-year guy at this time. They lost their offense coordinator in 02 and tried to carry over in 03. So in 03, they're 3rd in the country, have all these players on offense, and it took them 3 games to score a touchdown. At that point, I said I would rather take the online rankings for NCAA football, or in this case, Madden, take the top 10 players, shuffle them up and pull a hat, and I'd rather have that person calling plays. And I'm dead freaking serious about it. That's how bad it was. So, James, submit a resume, dude. It might not be that far-fetched. If I was in charge, you would have had a shot. If I was Auburn AD in 03, you would have had a shot.
How am I supposed to follow that, Scott? I really can't. All I can say is, James, you couldn't possibly be worse than Nathaniel Hackett has been to this point. Fortunately, Clint Kubiak looked like he had a little better grip on the play calling duties with Russell Wilson. So hopefully, at this point of the season, 3-7, that they can continue working on a upward trajectory.
Mike Estan, what's up, Broncos country? Mike, welcome in. Mike knows, Mike and I already go back way 2 years. He already knows I went to Auburn, and I know he's an Alabama fan. We still get along okay. I didn't grow up in Alabama. I grew up a pro sports fan, so I don't have that Auburn, Alabama thing ingrained in me for sure. Plus, when I was working college football recruiting so much, it was the teams that were second kind of in their area that were the worst to you, that treated people like the recruiting people like me. Oh, if they were going to Alabama, you would have given them more star. Oh God, enough. Yeah. So I don't have all that Auburn stuff in me too bad. So we get along just fine, and happy Thanksgiving. Mike Woodward says happy Thanksgiving, everyone, to you as well. William Colorado coming in. And let me see some more names. Nathan coming in. We call you Nathan because we're not really sure how to pronounce your name. It looks like Nathaphon.
We've all tried.
Looks close.
None of us have succeeded.
And Mike says, it's just sad we're 11 games into the 2022 season talking about a new coach. Unreal. Let's get into that for just a second, Zach. We're 11 games in. It's Thanksgiving. I don't think anybody really thought we'd be talking about a new coach. But now we're talking about it in earnest. There's articles, Eric Churchill has a long article on MHH about possible candidates. We've been talking about this for a while. I mean, it started 63-yard field goal Seattle Seahawks. Yep. That's when it started. It didn't start seriously until a couple weeks later, but it hasn't gotten that much better, has it, Zach?
No, in fact, it's gotten incrementally worse with Nathaniel Hackett. And it's funny, it's like we have a little hive mind going on because right before we went live, you made that exact same comment to me. It's crazy on Thanksgiving, we're talking about a new Broncos coach potentially. But my response to you, and I know, Scott, you haven't been around Broncos country that long, was it's par for the course. The season's over by October, and we're discussing a new coach / GM by November, Thanksgiving. That's how it's worked. It's looking like Hackett will be one and done, and all we have to hope is that George Paton, in what could be his final chance, his final swing at the bat, whatever expression you want to use, he's going to get one more head coaching pick. He has to get it right if he does indeed fire Nathaniel Hackett.
He's stuffed. Is that the expression we want to use today? Stuffed, sacked, all kinds of different things. I clicked on that by accident. Didn't mean to be talking about plumbing on Thanksgiving. Let me see in here. Michael Davis comes in. That feels like a newer name. Coming in. Says, did you see Melvin's Twitter farewell to Broncos country? We did. We talked about it a little bit on was it Thursday night? We hit it. It's starting. Today is Thursday night, so it was Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Nick and I did it on Tuesday night. I thought it was. I don't know if it's good natured. I just thought it was a little in bad taste. Yeah. You don't see too many people right after the fact saying, gosh, you guys were really mean to me. Ha 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 ha. It's just, I don't think it needed to be said. Just, say goodbye to your boys and say, hey, wish it could have worked out better. Broncos fans, Broncos country. Thanks for the $15 million, $20 million. And see you around. It came off low class a little bit to me, and I think he's very personable. Zach, you see in his interviews and stuff, he's very personable. He's very well liked, very likable person. I didn't think that needed to be done.
I mean, you could say it's low class. I say it's Melvin Gordon. This is the same guy who was liking tweets about being traded out of Denver a couple months ago. Same guy who wouldn't show up to mandatory practice or voluntary because it wasn't mandatory. It's just who he's been. And he might be personable, but he's very immature. He's extremely tone deaf. He can't read the room. He's the guy that can't figure out why Broncos country never got endeared to him. Well, Melvin, this is why. Because you're photoshopping yourself in a white Ford Bronco a la O.J. Simpson. That's the comparison you want to draw to yourself on your way out of Denver. We didn't like you because you fumbled the ball every time you touched it, it seemed like. Nothing personal, all business. But he doesn't understand that. It
There was a
reminds me
little
of when...
personable in it. Like I said the other day, because Philip Lindsay's name inevitably came up, and I had to remind everybody that he's probably better off not being in Denver, because right now he's on a pedestal. And he's been cut by 4 teams since, including Denver in the last 2 years. He averaged 3 yards a carry his last season in Denver, and he has been about that the whole time. He had an amazing rookie season, and it's gone incrementally down until it went way down ever since. But some of Melvin Gordon's, from what I understand, Zach, some of what Melvin Gordon's, we chose Melvin Gordon over Philip Lindsay, and Philip Lindsay was a cult hero. That's a little personal.
I don't know. I mean, all I know is that he's always been this way, and he's always been this way dating back to his time with the Chargers. It reminds me of, did you read when Robert Saleh with the Jets benched Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson's response was, "Why me? I want to play." That's acceptable from a second-year player. Melvin Gordon pretty much did the same thing with the stupid Photoshop, and he's a veteran, former Pro Bowler. He's supposed to be a leader of the locker room. This is why he no longer has a job. And this is why, Scott, he wasn't claimed off waivers. This is the reason why he's still on the street, as far as I know. He's a little radioactive, but he'll never admit that. It's always everyone else but Melvin Gordon.
Well, and no one was going to pick up he was owed about close to $1 million when I can get him for, do you want to play for $200,000 to finish the season? Because that's what you're going to get offered. You already tested free agency, Melvin. You didn't have the type of offers you thought you might. That's why you came back at a third of the price, because you're a running back. You're pushing the wrong side of your late 20s here. And on top of that, the personal things or whatnot. But yes, Michael, appreciate you coming in green on that. And Phil McLaughlin coming in with the stars, breaking the ice over on Facebook. He says, "Happy Thanksgiving, Zach. Deacon Scott, you're the priest over here. And Broncos country, go Broncos, and hashtag MHH for life." Bam X coming in, says, "Broncos country, happy Thanksgiving. Y'all to you as well." And Dave Glassman coming in with all kinds of thumbs up and colors and whatnot. Ted also coming in green. Said, "Head coaches should play a bunch of Madden to get clock management experience. There's a reason why 9-year-olds seemingly have better sense than some coaches." It's amazing, isn't it? You see some of these guys, and Zach, I don't know if you've heard me, how many times I bristle at the phrase, trust the coaches. Trust the coaches. Why? They make mistakes constantly. Now, again, a phrase I've come up here with more recently is, questions are easy, answers are hard. We can see that there's a problem here. Why hasn't this been addressed? Okay, because we went after this guy, we didn't get him, we were out of money, and this guy's agent, and whatever, stuff that we don't know could play into it. But, a 63-yard field goal, playing for a 63-yard field goal on 4th and 3, that's the wrong decision. Sometimes we would make a better decision than a coach. Just because they're coach doesn't mean they're not human. Okay? So, yes, it's amazing how often they choke the clock management thing. It really is. I agree with you, Ted.
I think we should amend the phrase to say, trust the competent coaches. Don't trust any old coach, but if he's proven himself and he knows what he's doing, then yeah, maybe defer to his ability. But Nathaniel Hackett does not know what he's doing. He looks like a deer in headlights who's about to get splashed all over a windshield. And he's looked like that consistently. And some coaches have it, some coaches don't. And we're learning that Nathaniel Hackett is the third in a growing line of first-time coaches who the Broncos gambled on that just does not cut the mustard. It's a big reason why, Scott, I think if they do fire Hackett and they do undergo another coaching search, they're going to look for someone with experience this time around.
I agree with you. It's almost like strike through. We've done this, and it feels like, I didn't see Vance Joseph, but it feels like it's gotten progressively worse also. Like each step, the Broncos are now at their lowest. It's
at least they practice good under VJ.
Yeah. I like to amend the trust the coaches thing. Is like, listen, I trust coaches to do what they think is best. But I don't trust them to always be right, or else no one would ever lose. So, second guessing, when people come into a chat and their answer is trust the coaches, I'm like, why are you here? we're here to discuss this and debate it and second guess. That's what we do here, not to trust the coaches. Anyway, they're going to make mistakes. Even the best of them make mistakes. Why did you take Cole Strange? That's a second guess moment. Bill Belichick, maybe the best that's ever done it. Okay. I'm not going to say if we had 100 decisions to make and we're going between them, he gets 99 of them right and I get one right. That's probably what happened. But on that 99, I'm going to ask, hey, why this guy? That seemed a little strange. No pun intended. I'm sorry. I did not mean to do that one. So let's get into this one just a little bit, talking about the possible coaches. Eric Trickle has, if you want to bring it up, or I can, has a long article on the front page of MHH about possible replacements. Speaking of one of the replacements, number one on the list is head coach Dan Quinn, is former Atlanta Falcons head coach Dan Quinn. And after Dan Quinn, basically his players went to bat for him to bring him back, he got 1 year too many in Atlanta. And after an 0-4, 1-7 start, they brought it together. They finished okay, and he came back, and he shouldn't have. It was 1 year too many. And after blowing another big lead at the beginning of the season, I text the Atlanta writer at the time, and I said, hey, go ahead and put together a list of coaching candidates. This isn't going to last long. And their PR director at Atlanta says, you're already writing these articles? Really? You're writing these articles about who it is and he's still the coach? Yes. Yes, we are. We're doing it now. Eric Trickle has a list, and number one on that list, Zach, Dan Quinn, former Atlanta Falcons head coach, current Dallas Cowboys head coach.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably speak to Dan Quinn's candidacy better than I could, considering you've watched him in Atlanta for so many years. But if you're looking for a retread, who else is really out there that's realistic? Sean Payton would be my, ideal pipe dream scenario. But he's still under contractual rights with the Saints, and according to rumors, he has his eye on the Cardinals and the Chargers, which suck if he comes to the AFC West. So you have to be realistic in who those retreads could be. Frank Reich, I don't know, the sexy factor really isn't there, at least with Dan Quinn. As George Payton learned in the interview process this past January, he's very excitable. He's very player friendly. He can connect and build his culture. I think the difference is he holds his players accountable, unlike Nathaniel Hackett. And he's doing a bang-up job in Dallas with that defense. I saw on the broadcast today, they lead the league in sacks and pressures, that Dallas defense does. So I'm curious to see what he can do with the Broncos defense. But two questions spring from that. If they go after Dan Quinn, I'm okay with it, but you have to answer these two things. One, what do you do with Ejiro Evero? Are you keeping him, or are you kicking him to the curb? I would make it a prerequisite for the next coach to come in. You got to keep Evero around. That's what we want to do. Number two, who's the OC going to be? If you can get me Dan Quinn and Frank Reich as the OC and keep Evero as the DC, it's done, sold. I'm on board with that. He has to nail the offensive coordinator hire. And Brian Schottenheimer, Scott, to me, does not really do it enough.
Yeah, I don't know who. Well, we can go down and see some of the candidates because Eric wrote this out, who it would be. Dan Quinn is a defensive guy, and it's ironic because his general manager ignored the defense. So it's like, oh, we'll just coach the guys on defense. Well, it kind of works the other way around. I need my athletes on defense. That's where I can't just scheme. I can scheme points. I can't scheme defenders. That's where the best athletes are on defense, because it's harder to play defense because you have to react to what the other person's doing, which means I have to be quicker than you to make up for whatever it is you do. So Dan Quinn was very, very good in Atlanta. You heard me say at the top of the show, the beta franchises. The Atlanta Falcons, I think, are 30th or 31st all-time winning percentage in the NFL. They're a disaster of a franchise for 60 years. It took them 45 years for them to have back-to-back winning seasons, period. It was a pro sports, a professional sports record. They didn't have back-to-back winning seasons for 45 years. So getting the Falcons to the Super Bowl and having a bad moment of it is an accomplishment. It's an accomplishment. he was there a season too long. One of his offensive coordinator hires helped do him in, and his general manager didn't help him. These are all the same things I said last year when he was one of the candidates. You could do worse than Dan Quinn. The players will play hard for him. He's got a good defensive mind. Like I said, the players love him. You could have a little luck in free agency with guys that would want to come and play for Dan Quinn. But again, you've got to get your hires right. And whatever he learned in Atlanta, he was good in Atlanta. He didn't finish well, but everybody gets fired. Just about everybody ends up getting fired. You could do worse than Dan Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it like he'd be the safe choice if it were to come down to Hackett and Quinn in the last coaching cycle, and they went with the upside choice and the ceiling in Hackett. Sometimes you got to take the floor, and the floor, I think, is pretty high with Dan Quinn and what he would do with this already elite defense.
So next on the list, I've got so many tabs open now because I keep this screen over here. I keep open to watch the Facebook chat, which I can't do right now because we're looking at this. Shane Steichen, offensive coordinator, Philadelphia Eagles. He says Steichen will draw a lot of attention for his work, the Eagles offense, and Jalen Hurts. For me, that's somebody I want to look at is not Aaron Rodgers, offensive coordinator, not Tom Brady's quarterback coach. They're their own guys. I mean, it's a nice way to go get a job. Who's the guy that had Joe Burrow at LSU, and all of a sudden he's 32 years old, and everybody wanted to make him the next Sean McVay? Brady, his name was Brady too, wasn't he?
Joe Brady.
Joe Brady's getting head coaching looks. I'm like, for one season with LSU, where you with a Heisman Trophy winner and a number one overall pick, and I promise you, it wasn't because of the coach that happened. It's because of Joe Burrow and the weapons he has at LSU. But Jalen Hurts isn't that guy. Jalen Hurts is a developmental guy and setting up an offense to his strengths in order to win football games based on some of the limitations you might have, you could say, with Jalen Hurts, that I think Steichen is doing a good job and would be very interested. And as Eric says, the offense is explosive and use their players' talents to their max. For another defensive guy on here is D'Amico Ryans, San Francisco 49ers, Alabama Crimson Tide. Love this guy, always have. He was at Alabama before Saban, when Alabama wasn't quite back to being Alabama yet, and was just a monster at Alabama, just a phenomenal inside linebacker there. But he's had a lot of success as the Niners defensive coordinator. And again, another defensive guy. Would you okay going with a defensive guy? Depending on who they're bringing with them, but you've got contacts. Hey, who's the next up and coming guy who wants to come in and be the next Mike McDaniels?
I don't know. I mean, it's offense, defense now after the Hackett failure. I'm willing to go with the most qualified candidate, and right. I want to see who they'd bring along. But on the point about Steichen, if they're going to go with a first timer again, which I don't think they will, he's the one that intrigues me the most, along with Ken Dorsey, the Bills OC. So I would want an offensive mind still. The thing about Steichen, though, I've watched a lot of Philly games this year because I have Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders. You have to wonder, how much is it him and how much is it Nick Sirianni, who I believe is calling the plays in Philadelphia? Number two, they have Miles Sanders, who they're criminally underusing at running back. So what Eric wrote about maximizing his talents, there are some nits to pick, though you can't deny how explosive that Eagles offense is under Jalen Hurts.
Sirianni turned over play calling duties, so he is calling the plays there.
What about game planning, prep, stuff like that? You have to wonder who's the main cook in the kitchen,
right? But at least this guy is calling plays, So
step up.
If you learned under him, and now you've got the reins and you're doing well, great. That's a good formula. For me, Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator, Detroit Lions. We got a good look at Detroit. Everybody should have been, most everybody that was here today, a lot of them were probably watching football. That's what kind of. We're the lunatic fringe, and I'm head lunatic, so I get it. But it says the Lions, who have poured some resources into offense, is starting to pay dividends. a little bit. They've overseen the Lions' resurgence this season. They ranked 10th in, now we're changing it up to DVAO. So, these acronyms. There's no doubt Johnson is getting the best at it. And then one more real quick before I want to take this off and throw out a couple wild cards. We'll get some of what the chat is saying here is Frank Reich. Frank Reich, he's a free agent, and with 6 different quarterbacks in 6 years, he had a winning record. 41, 33, and 1. And I get the feeling he's really well liked by his players too. Had success at Philly before going to Indianapolis, and has been a winner for the most part at Indianapolis. And I didn't realize how dysfunctional that ownership situation is there until I started kind of watching the Colts a little bit more closely with Matt Ryan heading there this year. And Irsay's a kook. He may have experimented in a little too much done too many chemistry experiments through the years. He looks like he's about 90 years old, and he's only about 10 years older than I am. It's crazy.
Ben Johnson, I don't think he's ready to be a coordinator. I think it's kind of a flash in the pan what he's doing with that Lions offense. Though the breakout of Amon-Ra St. Brown and DeAndre Swift in Detroit, he deserves some credit for that. But it's a little recency bias, Scott, because the Broncos offense has been so poor. They can't score over 20 points, and we're seeing what he can do with Jared Goff. Now he looks more attractive. Reich, he would be a retread. He does have experience, and he did have a winning record in Indy. He did a lot more good than bad, and I think he was a fall guy partly because, like you mentioned there, Irsay is kind of crazy, and management's been in flux. I just don't know if that's where they want to go. I don't know if they want to go back to defense. I don't know if Frank Reich. What he reminds me of, Scott? I liken it to like Cortland Sutton. I absolutely love Sutton as a wide receiver too, but as a wide receiver 1, I have a little bit of apprehension. As an OC, I would sign up ASAP for Frank Reich to be the Broncos offensive coordinator. Head coach, that's where I kind of waffle.
I think he needs a rehabilitation year, possibly like that, where he can go. It happens all the time. Guys take a step back. They go become a coordinator, and you remember why they were head coaching candidate Dan Quinn. You remember why they were head coaching candidates and got the job the first time, because they're really good coaches. Sometimes the situation just might not be right. The fit might be right. You wear out your welcome, whatever. But like I said, 9 out of 10 are going to get fired at some point in their careers, but they can still have some success. Who was I thinking of? I don't know. I got one of my tabs started talking, so I was hearing an echo on you because I had a YouTube tab open, and so I was like, I had to turn that off. I'm like, wait a minute, am I talking, or is it my turn? So that one threw my train of thought off a little bit, which is a good time to go get a super chat. Garth Knight had come in here. Let me see where he went here. Garth, where'd you go? Here we go. It's great to see you gents on Turkey Day. Hope y'all had some good chow. Dan Quinn all the way if possible. Yeah, and I think one of the comments from maybe Ken Patterson coming here, he said, I find this all so disrespectful. This is on, it's basically on the quarterback, with it's not really going to matter if Russell Wilson's the problem.
Disrespectful to who, though?
Yeah, it's
who are we disrespecting?
Again, I don't think it's all any one party, but Russell Wilson's got a contract that's going to keep him in Denver for
exactly
2.5 more years. I can pay off Nathaniel Hackett and change head coaches. Appreciate
Scott,
you, Garth. You've been super busy on
Scott, I have a burning question for you. We have to address this really quickly, okay? Turkey or ham?
Me?
Yeah, I'm team turkey.
I for Thanksgiving, I think it's a turkey holiday.
Yeah.
Okay. Christmas ham, turkey holiday.
Agreed.
I would eat both, but I'm a vegetarian now. But if I'd go to big enough family gatherings that there'd be both, I'd grab both.
Garth's a ham guy.
My favorite part actually was the sides. So it's easy being a vegetarian on. It's like I ate the turkey because it was there, but the green bean casserole, the corn casserole, the stuffing, the biscuits and mashed potatoes and gravy, all that pumpkin pie. That's what I really like. Turkey. Put that on a sandwich. Big deal. Turkey was not my favorite part of Thanksgiving dinner. So it's pretty easy to give up.
I hear the leftovers calling me right now. Oh, that sounds really good. I'm with you. I think the sides are better than the actual main course. So I had to just get that survey out
and
there
the
really quickly.
desserts. And the desserts. David Kilgore asking the question that nobody wants to put this out there in the universe in case it might come true. Indianapolis Colts fans are so unenamored with general manager Chris Ballard that Chris Ballard was trending on my timeline today because Chris Ballard, by God, better not try and trade for Zach Wilson. This guy was trending. David comes in. He says, do you think we might take a hard look at the Zach Wilson situation since it seems he's on the outs with the Jets? I would be in favor of that. What would it cost?
I'm out. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. I'm only half joking. I can't do it. If the Broncos, if we're talking about Zach Wilson right now, I have nothing left. What do you say, Scott?
I say a seventh round pick. You send it to him and bring him in, and he's not your presumed starter, and let him rehabilitate himself and come in as basically being treated like an undrafted free agent. Fine. But from what I saw in a year and a half of watching him play, and I probably watched him 6 times, he's the worst quarterback in the NFL. And that's saying something. I mean, I don't know who Mike White is. Mike White's starting for the Jets this week. I don't know who that is. Couldn't tell you a thing about him. You've heard me lament about the quarterback play in this league, and I've talked before about what Major League Baseball has done to the NFL as far as passers go. It's bad. And Zach Wilson, they talk about, it's mental. He's got this. What made me really down on Zach Wilson was when he had time, he was worse. That's a bad trait to have at this level. If you give a quarterback time at the NFL level, he'll pick you apart. I don't care if it's PJ Walker or Sam Darnold for the Carolina Panthers. If he is back there comfortable in the pocket, you are in trouble at this level. Not with Zach Wilson. Sit back there, let him throw. He'll freak out and throw it to a guy in your shirt. He's terrible. No, wouldn't do it.
It would be quite the feat, though. If there's one quarterback in the NFL who's been worse than Russ this season, it's been Zach Wilson's. Let's just have him on one team. Why not? The same quarterback room. Can't get any worse than it's been this year.
I guess if you want to pick him up and drop him on the practice squad and let him work his way up from there, he's got basically Josh Rosen, the dude. That's what happened with him.
Maybe you're taking on the contract, though.
But there's not that. I mean, it's not that big of a contract. I mean, let me see what would he get? Let me see what Zach Wilson would get as a rookie quarterback. It's still a good bit. You're right.
We have to hide the moms in Dove Valley, though.
That's probably that Zach Wilson Jets could be. What, they take his picture off of there? His cap hit in 23 would be 10. Yeah, and then in 2024, his cap hit next year would be 10, and his 2024 cap would be 11. That's a lot. That's more than I'm willing to pay him.
$11 is too much.
That's more than I'm willing to pay him. RD comes in from Canada. He's coming in blue. He says thoughts on Mike Zimmer. Peyton loves them Vikings. Who's the head coach up there now? Where is
Kevin
Zimmer
O'Connell.
was gone last year, right? So he's Vic Fangioing on vacation, getting his severance pay this year.
I guess. I mean, I don't know what he would come in as. I don't want him as a head coach, and the Broncos have a perfectly fine ascending defensive coordinator in Ejiro Evero. Mike Zimmer is like Vic Fangio 2.0. Very stuck in his ways, very old school. No, we tried that out. It didn't work. I'm not going back to that well.
Yeah, here, I've got one off the wall for you, and this may go over horribly in Broncos country, but if we're talking retreads for someone that has matured, I was as critical as this person as anybody because I got to see him up close in the college game after being a Raiders coach. Lane Kiffin's a different guy. He is someone I saw, he's hired at 31 years old. And what's worse than not being ready for the job is thinking you are and not being ready for it. Is being that arrogant. He got humbled in a hurry. He was a disaster with the Raiders. He was a disaster with Tennessee. He was a disaster with USC. And then he took a step back, went to one of the directional schools in Florida. He's doing a good job at Ole Miss, and he's about to go from $7 million to probably 10 or 11 million in the college ranks. He's got NFL pedigree. He's, like I said, he is a different type of person than he was 10 years ago. Not everybody can say that, but hell, he was so young. Like I said, what's worse than not being ready, which he wasn't, is not knowing it. A friend of mine coached for him, and I said, what's it like? I said, the impression I always got is this dude was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple. And he goes, you nailed it. That's him. Hadn't accomplished anything in his life, but, hey, daddy got him in the league. He's a pretty good football coach now, Zach.
Isn't that what someone just said about Ryan Day, that he was born on third?
I don't know. I've said that for a long time about you born on third base and thought you hit a triple. That's an old phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of bias toward Kiffin because he did coach in my alma mater, which is FAU. But
is that where he was? I couldn't remember if it was IU, AU, or one of those two down there.
Yeah, go Owls. But I don't know if they're going to be that extreme. I mean, you don't want to find the next McVay, the next Shanahan, but you got to keep it within the realm of the realistic. And I just think George Payton this time around, considering his job's on the line, he has ownership now looking over his shoulder. He has to get this right. So if you go for the floor guy and you go for the safe choice, that to me is a guy like Dan Quinn or maybe Frank Reich.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Lane Kiffin does end up. Like, I think it's getting harder to compete with the college ranks, the kind of money that they're coming out. I don't think you can outbid the University of Georgia for a coach. The job is more about coaching instead of recruiting and transfer portal and all that crap, which is why guys would like to get into the professional ranks because college is a freaking mess. But financially speaking, it's 8-figure contract. When you don't have to pay your players, you spend a lot of money on shiny things like facilities and coaches staff. Garth Knight comes in green with a super chat. He says, I think the situation with Zach Wilson is mental. Maybe, but it might not be. He's just playing at BYU and slinging the ball around is very different. I mean, what kind of comparisons could we use for him? Ryan Leaf, Ryan Leaf was phenomenal at Washington State. There's a reason why there was a real argument between him and Peyton Manning, but Ryan Leaf got by on pure arm talent. He didn't have the mental aspect of the game. I'm not sure that's quite what Garth meant, but that's where I'm going with that one.
This is all I'll say. The Broncos have one quarterback already who they're very much committed to, who might be going through a mental funk, psychological funk, whatever. Let's work through one head case before we take on another. All I'm saying.
Let me see. I'm going to go down. I thought I had one more. Did we had a yellow? There was a yellow chat in here that oh, it was David. Okay, we got David. We talked about David's the one that got us into the Zach Wilson down the Zach Wilson tunnel.
Damn you, David.
We'll find another one out there in this weekend. You'll get a good look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has enough arm talent and the gunslinger mentality that if he goes on a heater, he can beat you. The problem is that's one every 4 games. He's not good enough to be where he's been. Trade 3 draft picks in order to move up and take this guy. He was overvalued early, and he got a nice big fat contract out of it. So good for him. But he's a free agent after this year, and he'll be playing for a contract against the Broncos this week.
I think the last time he played the Broncos, he had that long run where he juked out Simmons and Kareem Jackson. That was fun. But if they lose to Sam Darnold, he of former Ghost Vision, you gotta fire Nathaniel Hackett literally right after the game. I said that about the Raiders game last week. If you lose to McDaniels and get swept by him, just fire him immediately. But this would be an all new low. This is the only game left on the schedule, Scott, where I give the Broncos even a fighting chance. If they lose this game, just pack your crap and get out.
I think they're in they've been in every game. I think they're in this one too. Melvin Gordon and fumble was the record. Well, that part is gone now. That one, and I think we mentioned Monday morning. I was talking about watching Moneyball Sunday night, and Monday morning I said Billy Beane may take him out of the lineup for you. You're not playing Payne at first base. He's like, well, I am. He's like, no, you're not. He didn't play for us anymore. That's what's going to happen with Melvin Gordon, and it did pretty quickly after that. Addition by subtraction per chance. I know Javonte Williams fumbled also, Melvin against the Seattle Seahawks, but if Javonte Williams gets the ball the first time on the goal line, is it a different outcome? The Raiders game, is it a different outcome? If he doesn't kick it off last weekend, put it on the turf and lose it, and you don't score any points, is it a different outcome? That's 3. And you're 3-7. 10 games flipping, that's 6-4, where I can say there's a real chance there's an outcome different if it's anybody but Melvin Gordon carrying the football. So, this team can win everybody that is on there. It says my mic is off. Garth, are you sure?
You sound like the drive-through at McDonald's. I thought my turkey was laced with something because it sounds like you're on quite the upper right now, Scott. It's like a double speed. So maybe it's your connection or maybe it's the microphone.
What's happening with the
I
audio?
thought it was just me, though.
I don't know. I'll log out and come back in, but
yeah, I'll get
again. Yeah, I'll be right
back. Yeah, I appreciate you guys noticing that. I thought it was me. I swear to God. I was like, I don't know what's going on right now, but let me look through the chat. We have a few minutes, guys. We're going to get to the head-to-head, the Broncos and the Panthers game, because this is the final podcast until Sunday's game. I did see, I can't get to it. I believe it was Dave Glassman who asked the extent of Von Miller's injury. And anyone who watched the Bills, the Lions game earlier today, they saw, as Scott comes back, they saw Von Miller go down with a knee injury. He went to the medical tent and then got carted off, and he was immediately ruled out for the remainder of the game, which are never good things. I heard knee sprain for Von Miller, but that could reveal more when he has an MRI tomorrow. I hope it's nothing serious. You hate to see him on a cart, Scott.
It looked like it was, I thought it was his ankle when I saw it the first time. Let me sure my back in here now. So I sound clearer.
Yeah, you're good.
I was going off really well, too. I had a good point. I'll try and make it quick this time. Melvin Gordon will not be there to fumble the ball. I could make the case that this team is 6-4 just off Melvin Gordon's fumbles. Seahawks, Raiders. Who'd they play last week? I've already kind of whooshed. Raiders twice. Raiders, Seahawks. If Melvin Gordon isn't your running back. So you can beat anybody on this roster. Your defense is going to keep you in these games. Now, addition by subtraction, maybe you can actually push the ball into the end zone, or at least not fumble it on the turf.
Here's my straw man to that, though. It's the coach was still handing Melvin Gordon the football. And not only that, the coach, after Melvin Gordon fumbled 2 wins away, he named him the starter. He gave him the starting job, and he bent his knee to Melvin Gordon. So even if Gordon was out of the equation, it's only a matter of time before Nathaniel Hackett's incompetence caught up to the Broncos.
All right, fine.
Just saying.
I think the Broncos are going to be in every game, but I don't think the Panthers are a pushover. They're 3-3 at home.
Defense is too good.
And their defense is freaking good. This is when they want to play, their defense is really good. So we will see. But since we're talking a little bit of Panthers and Broncos now, let's bring up some head-to-heads. We're starting here. As you can see, it says NFL's top 10 is green. NFL bottom 10 is red. Why is this team so bad? Look at where they are in turnover margin. You hear everybody say all the time, we got to run the ball, we got to stop the run, we got to win the turnover battle. You lose the turnover battle, you're going to lose games. The Broncos are dead even, so they should be better than 3-7. And shoot, I just mentioned, 3 games for Melvin Gordon that could have done it. Let's look at the offense. I think the over-under on this game is down to 35, 36. That's still generous for me because the offenses stink. The one thing Russell Wilson has done is not give the ball away for the most part. They've only been intercepted 6 times, and that may not have all been that probably wasn't all Wilson. I don't remember if ripping through I think he threw a pick or 2 in his start as well. Fumbles lost. Boy, we seem to remember all of those, don't we? Only four fumbles lost. Well, 3 of them were pretty damn costly because I just mentioned 3 of them off the top of my head. And giveaways 5th, where the Panthers will give the ball away. And what's their solution for that? Let's put in Sam Darnold at quarterback. Sacks allowed. Offensive line is not good. 33. They're 20th. I'm like, wait a minute. How'd you finish 33 in a 32-man race? Third down percentage. Good Lord. I mean, this is, like I say all the time, I like a good pitching duel. This isn't a good pitching duel. This is bad offense. This is guys that can't swing the bat. I bet we're going to see a little more green coming this direction, though.
This isn't a pitching duel. This is the bird that Randy Johnson destroyed that one time. Just a lifeless carcass, 2 of them battling it out to see who can suck the least. Can you go up for a second, Scott? I think it was the 25th ranked offense for the Panthers in scoring versus the 32nd ranked scoring offense with the Broncos. If there's ever a game where you want to put bleach in your eyeballs, it's this Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Don't try that at home, though.
And somehow these guys ran for 220 yards. Dante Foreman, who was working in his launching his trucking company, is rushed for 500 yards in the last 4 games. But yeah, a lot of red there. Net passing yards is low. That could go up with Darnold throwing the ball. But again, watch that had intercepted number go up too. It's just 10 right now. That one, you could go up. He's probably, I would bet now he's going to throw for more than 175. I'll take my over on that and probably throw one to the wrong team as well. Or at least
wonder what the over-under is on punts, because it's the 32nd versus the 31st ranked third down offense. A lot of punts coming up on Sunday.
Net yards per game, 302. Yards per play. And see, that's the one I really like is the yards per play. Because that shows your efficiency as well. And you're 3rd in the league in yards per play. You're not just grinding the game out and limiting possessions. You're actually stopping people and getting them off the field. Unfortunately, they're getting a lot more possessions because you're going 3 and out all the time because you are 31st in the NFL in third down percentage. You don't convert third downs. Net passing yards per game is they don't throw the ball and you don't give up many yards. That's pretty good. Where you're not getting a ton right now is turnovers. Is your 22nd and 21st in for 24th overall in takeaways. Panthers don't take it away that much either, and both teams are about middle of the pack for sacks and third down and red zone percentage defense. Man, where we've got low scoring games. I can't score when I get in the red zone, but at least my defense doesn't let them score either. So it's pretty ugly. Special teams, good special teams units for Carolina Panthers. I'm not going to read through all those. You can see them. Penalties, 83rd is still 32nd. And the opponent penalties committed means have committed. You've committed the most, and you've had the second most committed against you. 100, we'll just call it 160. 160 penalties in 10 games. Good Lord, that makes for some bad football. I mean, that's just stopping the game constantly to call a penalty on somebody. So it has been tough. It has been tough. So anything out there, that we didn't already hit on that jump out at you, Zach?
One team is on an interim coach, though. They have the excuse of being undisciplined. Carolina. What's the Broncos' excuse? They have a first-time coach, but they've been bad with penalties the entire year. Yeah, and it's pretty sad how the Broncos, the defensive rankings have fallen off just because of that Raiders game, and that was far and away the defense's worst effort of the season. And it's not coincidental that the sacks and the takeaways went down when Gregory went on IR. When he comes back, he's the only one that can really take the ball away. But Scott, that has been my one gripe about Evero's defense. They're very stout. They don't break very often, but they're not taking the ball away enough. They're not making those game-changing plays happen. Too much of the Fangio era coming back.
I think, but they're forcing, to me, I'd have to look it up. My gut feeling, I call it, seat of the pants analytics. my feeling is that they're getting the guys off the field. Like there's more possessions in the game. They're forcing more punts. They're not taking the ball away, but they're forcing more punts. There's the Broncos are getting more possessions. They're just not doing anything with it on offense. This is one of the things I'll disagree with Chad on a lot. He's like, well, it came down again, and the Broncos defense, they couldn't get it done at a 10th lead. Man, you give up 16 points.
They're on the field constantly.
They're on the field constantly. The other team is supposed to score some points.
Right.
I mean, there's very few shutouts. You're second in the league in points given up. The defense is doing its job, and if they could get any help from the offense, we'd realize just how damn good this defense was. Even if they were just bad. This was a bad offense. This team would be 7-3. Instead, it's historically horrendous. Just working your way up from historically horrendous to bad, and you're 7-3. So Patrick coming in with the support, and he supports all of us with the coffee at lioncoffee.com. Again, YouTube, this is not an ad. This is just a shout out to a friend. So lioncoffee.com. Tell them MHH sent you.
Good stuff.
Garth Knight coming in. I would like to see which one that you were responding to. I see Tilly in here. Tilly says, of course you can draft to get talent you need, then costs will be abated. Too bad they traded away so many draft picks. He's talking about trying to build a team around Wilson as a cost. So much salary cap went to Wilson, you can't afford it. There's more available than you think. And Garth says that trying to so much salary went into Wilson, you can't afford it. Gents, your thoughts on this? Okay, well, that's what he did. I was like, this sounds familiar. Garth supered Tilly, so he took care of that for me. So thanks, Garth. How much better would this team be with 3 good interior linemen, Zach?
A lot. They'd have at least a few more victories under their belt, but again, they'd be limited, I think, by the incompetence of Hackett. But you're right; it all starts with the offensive. I see the point you're trying to make.
Those are cheap. The point I'm trying to make is interior linemen are cheap. I think this team would be, again, you could go from awful to bad, and you'd be in the playoffs this year. No doubt in my mind. Just from 16 to 20 points. 20 is still not good. Let me see. What if you went to 20 points? ESPN,
they'd be 9-1 right now.
I like the way ESPN sorts their stats. So I do use ESPN for my stats.
Or 8-2 at worst if they score 20 points.
Yeah. So if their points per game, 20 points puts you. The only thing they don't do is they need a ranking on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is 22nd. 20 points is 22nd in the NFL. That's bad. You're 20 points, you're in the playoffs. No doubt in my mind, you got a winning record. And yes, I believe, despite all the problems we've talked about, as far as you're worried about your head coaching, you're worried about Russell Wilson. If I had good play from my center and 2 guards, I'm a field goal a game better. That's going to put me knocking on the door right at 20 points a game. Okay. Let alone if I get a full touchdown and a full touchdown better. I'm in the 23 range. Now I'm in a mediocre offense. Okay. So it's hard for me to say Russell Wilson is washed when he's jumpy as, one of my cats when something falls on the floor. You ever seen a cat jump when there's a surprise? Hopefully they're not sitting in your lap because they tear you to shreds. That's what he's like back there in the pocket right now because he's getting killed. He's got no time. So until that gets fixed, I don't know how good or bad Russell Wilson is. Could he be better? Sure, he could. Do I know if he's washed or not? No, I don't. The offensive line can get better for cheap. For really, there's money, resources available to fix the OL over this offseason, Zach.
Yeah, my cat does backflips when he gets startled, so I know what you mean by that. And you're right, absolutely. It's always been about the offensive line. Going into the season, even when the hype was at its peak with Hackett and Russ, I said the O-line is still the one thing that can bring this all down and hold back the Broncos' potential. But you're right. Interior guys, guard centers, they're not that expensive. The Broncos can't afford them. They got a first-round pick back in the Bradley Chubb trade. If you take a right tackle, let's say, with that first-round pick, they're cost-controlled. They're on a rookie contract for 4 years. So you can definitely rebuild in one offseason, but where that rebuild has to, must do, needs to start is up front on the O-line. 2, maybe even 3 new starters in 2023.
I thought you were going to go with a competent head coach.
That's assumed.
That's where it's got to start. And Brandon says, "Hell, if we won the overtime games alone, we're 6-4." And there was the narrative when Broncos country walked out on the Broncos in the overtime game. Oh, they knew they were going to lose. To me, that wasn't the feeling I got watching the game. Was they left because they'd seen enough of that crap. That game was horrendous. It already felt, even if you win, you're like, we suck. I don't want to watch any more of this. I don't care if we eke out a win somehow in overtime. I don't care. That was the feeling I got, and that's worse than, oh, we're going to lose this game. I know that feeling.
I felt that way in week 2. A 1-point victory over Houston felt like a loss.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to apologize for a win, but it's like the goals that this team has. Desert Creature come is spun on analysis, Zach. 2 dead carcasses playing each other. Yeah, this is, we talked a little bit about the game being kind of ground down against the Titans, but the Titans are a much better overall football team than the Panthers. They're not very good on offense. They're really good on defense, but they don't turn the ball over as much. They don't commit as many penalties. They're just a much more fundamentally sound. In a low scoring game, they're the good pitcher. they're doing things, and then they're manufacturing a run. This Carolina Panthers team has some talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but they're not overall a very good team. But in the NFL, if it all comes together for them, they could be very good. But I still like the under is really, really low, and I still like it.
It's the battle to see who's deader. That's where we've come to. 6 years after Peyton Manning decided to retire, it's 2 dead carcasses facing off.
Crazy K feels like this is a newer name coming in, but I like the question. Are skill players overrated?
The Broncos skill players.
I think just in general, because we're here talking about lines. We're talking about lines of scrimmage, this, and this.
Well, I'm watching Justin Jefferson kind of beast against Belichick right now, so it depends on the skill player. But with the Broncos, I think he's asking, are skill players overrated?
Yeah, you're right. Are our skill players overrated? You're right. So that's a whole other philosophical thing.
Definitely a few.
I believe in building inside out, from the trenches out. But you can do that for cheaper. Elite skill players are really expensive. They're really expensive, and you get what you pay for to a certain extent. But are our skill players overrated? On offense, we went through this last year. It's like, how good is this receiving core? Well, we don't know because we don't have a quarterback in Pat Shurmur. Well, this year we have a quarterback, who's put up some big numbers and gone to 8 or 9 Pro Bowls. But the overall execution on offensive line is poor, and the skill players don't look very good. We didn't get to see Tim Patrick this year. I don't know that Jerry Jeudy's going to ever take that breakout leap to justify his draft ranking. At this point, you don't pick up his you do not pick up his 5th-year option. KJ Hamler has not been healthy since his 3rd year in college. Sutton's good. Javonte Williams is good, but he's out. So it depends on where you rate them. Where did you have them ranked coming in? To say, are they overrated or not? That's a relative question. Coming into the season, we thought this could be one of the best wide receiver groups in the league. Yes, we overrated them.
First of all, I hate the term skill player because shouldn't every player have skill, or isn't every player a skill player? I never understood that phrase. I think, though, I'm leaning yes. And you brought up one name, Courtland Sutton. I've been one of, if not the biggest Courtland Sutton fan on the face of this planet. But he doesn't look like the same Courtland Sutton as in the years past. And I don't know if he's tired of losing. He doesn't like Russ. It's the knee still bothering him, but he's a little overrated by that metric alone. To me, Garrett Bowles, you want to call a left tackle a skill player? To me, he's overrated. He's good. He's like Melvin Gordon. He's good, but he's not great. You shift gears to defense, Scott. I think one of the most overrated players on the entire roster is Justin Simmons. And another player who's good, but he's not top 3 safety in the NFL. Top 10 safety for sure, but I think he's overrated as well. Except for Javonte, Tim Patrick, PS2, who am I missing that's not overrated on this Broncos roster in hindsight now?
And going into that, sometimes the pay comes into that metric as well. The average salary for Garrett Bowles puts him 15th among offensive linemen in the NFL. Only one guard ahead of him, but there's a mixture of left tackles and right tackles. Is he playing like a top 15 left tackle? If I go to safeties and I look at average salary by safeties, Justin Simmons is 5th. Is he 5th? So one of the ways I look at, say, by overrated is to compare their production. Are they worth what they're getting paid? There's a Q rating, which is what does everybody else think about them and how are they perceived nationally. And then there's a salary rating. Are they better or worse than they're getting paid? I would say that they're both overpaid relative to their production, but not so much so that it's awfully detrimental to the team. But yes, I get everybody's a skill player on there.
This is one too I was battling in my head. I love Draymond Jones, but he's never really taking over a game like you'd see with Aaron Donald, Jeffrey Simmons, even Leonard Williams with the Giants, Quinnen Williams with the Jets. These interior linemen just take over ball games. Draymond will pop every now and then, but he's not been consistent enough in this defense to warrant that title.
Well, and you could end up, the talk is franchise tagging him. Do you franchise tag him? Is he worth a 1-year, $23 million tag? Or do you tag him and trade him or something along those lines? I don't, we'll see. We'll see what it takes. I'll be very, very interested to see what Draymond gets in a second contract, whether it's from the Broncos or for someone else. And Michaela, the Duchess, coming in saying, happy Thanksgiving, fellas. Love you guys. Right back at you. Love you too, Michaela. Hope you had a great day. We're actually over an hour, Zach. How did that happen?
We just have fun on here. It always happens like that. I looked up. It was at 15 minutes. I just looked up again because you said something, and now we just crossed an hour and 2. So we're going to get out of here, I think, tonight.
I want to hit Randy. Randy's coming in with some of these stars. Me in the background, the big boy stars. Hey, those are big boy stars because they don't show up on our end in here. You have to look at them on Facebook. So the Facebook community can give him a like and say, wow, those are big boy stars coming in for Randy. So do we draft linemen or free agency? Happy Thanksgiving, all.
Yes,
that is not an or question for me, Randy.
Exactly.
That's an and. There will be. Here it is right now, Zach. Let's set the over/under on new offensive linemen on the 53 next year.
Starters or just in general?
Just in general.
5 or 6 at least.
I was saying 6. That's what I was thinking too. So we'll set it at 5.5. That's exactly the number I was thinking. Was 6 out of 8 or 9. There's gonna be 5 or 6 new ones, Randy, and it's gonna be draft and it's gonna be free agency. I would not be surprised to see 3 of each come in, and you can use your draft picks. You can trade down and accumulate picks. You can get good starting caliber right now, interior linemen in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds, especially when the bar has been set as low as it is. You can get better. You might want to use a 2nd or a high 3rd on a right tackle, or your 1st if that's where it comes in, and then I can fill in free agency. But I want competent veterans and I want draft picks. It's time to I wouldn't even say restock. It's time to stock. It's empty. You're not restocking. It's stocking. You're barren right there. And real quick before we get out of here, since you said turkey or ham, pecan.
Really neither. I like apple pie, cherry pie. If I had a pick, I'd say pumpkin pie over pecan though. I
am not a fruit pie kind of guy. But I would go pumpkin on this one. I think it's probably because the crust on pie is not sweet enough for me. I'm a huge sugar person. and it's almost like having a biscuit. I need to like lather it in butter. So I like pumpkin pie because the crust basically becomes part of the pie. So otherwise you have to like drown it in ice cream, and then I'm not liking the pie part of it. I'm liking the ice cream. So I'm not a pie guy. Pie's not sweet enough for me for the most part. That's why I do like pumpkin pie better.
I'm more of a cake guy anyway. I see Phil and
Cake,
Mark
cookies,
in the chat.
brownies, all that kind of stuff.
Give me some cheesecake and I'm a happy boy. So that's where I lean.
All right, well, let's get out of here.
On that note.
On that note, there's probably some. I've had enough today. I've had enough sugar. I cannot eat enough sugar to make myself sick enough to say I'm not going to eat any more sugar. It just doesn't happen. I'm crazy about sugar. It's the hardest thing I've ever tried to like give up. Out of all the things I've quit in my life, sugar is the freaking hardest. Anyway, on that note,
before Scott's blood sugar explodes, be sure to follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod. That was, again, guys, the last podcast of the work week before. I guess today wasn't a work day, but it was for me and you, but not for most other people. Until Sunday, the Gut Reaction Podcast. Until then, though, follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod, the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like I'm rocking right now, or like you've seen on this program, any other program on the network, go to huddleuppod.com and check out the merch store. And if you haven't, go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Be sure you're liking that page, following that page. And if you have an Apple Podcast, be sure to go there, leave your football priest and our Deacon Scott a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every month. But if anything, guys, please, as you see ticking below you, subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really does help us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you. Scott, last word.
Last words is a promo to if you're sitting around tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock in the morning, you're up, catch Thomas Hall in the morning. He'll be here on Legends of Mile High. And then 2 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern, noon, right at lunch, flip on England and USA. It's World Cup time, and that'll be a big match. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow while shopping Black Friday on, the internet. But thanks for being here, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week and start to your weekend. We'll see you for the Get Reaction podcast following Sunday's game. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.